It's your money that we want, and your money we shall have.
Hello lovelies, let's talk about pretentiousness itself, given this is a pretentious waffle. After all, not the artsy kind with the capital A, but the sort that creeps in through the back door of creative work. The thing that emerges through the nature of creative work itself. You know the one, the little voice in your head that whispers, this needs to have a deeper meaning. This needs to be about something. This needs to have a message. Or people won't take this seriously unless I put some metaphor in about the death of God and late-stage capitalism. That little voice is a goddamn scurrilous liar. Sometimes things are just fine. Being fun, loud, trashy, and as dumb as a sack of lobotomized hammers. So there's a truth that many of us who work in the word mines or in other creative industries already know, but often forget to say out loud. And that is that when you live and you breathe something, stories, when you read everything, when you watch everything, when you consider every game that you play or that you read with a critic's eye, a designer's eye, you can end up weird. Because you're not consuming media in the way that other people consume media, and you're also consuming a lot more of it in order to try and maintain your own taste and talent. But like anyone who makes a profession of something, your tastes become rarefied. You become a wine snob, no longer satisfied with guzzling Mad Dog 2020 or Lambrusco in order to get shit-faced, and instead starting to spend serious money on what still amounts to rotten fruit juice and mumbling about burnt rubber and terroir. You start chasing originality, novelty, and depth or faux depth like some kind of addict, jonesing for a new hit of narrative structure, some new twist or idea that you haven't encountered before, or that hasn't been executed this way before. You start to see tropes and twists and plots and everything coming from a mile away. What surprises and delights and aghast normies doesn't even raise a quirked eyebrow anymore. And that's fine, except when you start thinking that everyone should be like you, or is like you, and must necessarily share this rarefied taste that you've developed over time by becoming a snob and a creator. You lose the ability to just kind of relax and enjoy the swill the plebs like to guzzle. You get disconnected from the audience. Let's try a metaphor. Imagine that you work in a magical chocolate factory, but you're not an Oompa Loompa because that biases the point. Every day, it's wall-to-wall chocolate. Chocolate for breakfast, chocolate for lunch, chocolate for dinner. You have to do tastes, tests. It's in the air. Every breath you take, you taste chocolate. When you go home, you smell of chocolate. After a few months, even the smell of the stuff starts to make you a little bit queasy, and you would no longer really enjoy chocolate because you have been overexposed to it. You might start to like darker, more bitter chocolate, or Chilean chocolate, or something different. Yeah, but then someone else walks in off the street, eyes wide, and says, "Holy shit, you get to work with chocolate every day? That's amazing. That sounds like heaven." And you kind of want to give them a dry slap. But they're not wrong. They just haven't had the same overexposure that you've had. They're still able to enjoy the simple pleasure of chocolate, and you can't anymore, at least not in the same way. But you also can't expect them to like your Crunchy Frog Surprise chocolate in the way that you do. So this divide between creator and audience starts to open up the longer that you're in the game. You start making things that attempt to impress your peers, or impress yourself or satisfy this internal pretentious urge instead of your players, instead of your buyers, instead of the people you're trying to sell your games to. I am certainly guilty of this and cramming in extra meaning and stuff that nobody's going to appreciate. But you stop asking what people actually want at the table and you start asking yourself, how can you win a design award? Or how can you write whatever the next flavour of darling of the indie scene is? You're not wrong for doing it, but you're maybe forgetting something important, that most people just want to get loaded and have a good time. Let's take a case study from a different medium, in case that helps. Consider Francis Ford Coppola. You might have heard of him. Made a little thing called The Godfather, then Apocalypse Now. Tight, sharp, compelling, masterful stuff, but made under certain pressures and constraints. There were producers, studios, budgets, deadlines, other people involved, actors. Yeah, that's the kind of friction that can produce diamonds just as easily as it can produce dreck. Now, skip forward to Megalopolis, his passion project, the thing he'd been trying to make for decades. No budget constraints, no studio interference, just pure, unfiltered Coppola doing whatever the fuck he wanted as an auteur. And it's kinda shit. It's ambitious, sure. It's also meandering, confusing, and more about its own cleverness and illusions than anything else. It's the cinematic version of that one RPG campaign where the GM has 10,000 pages of lore, no player agency, and thinks their dream sequence about postmodern urban decay is the height of storytelling, when everyone else is just bored and they're the only one having fun. Now, normally on this channel I play up the fact that being an auteur is good, and it can be. You have to please yourself while you're making things, otherwise it'll never get done. And in this business, it's barely a business. So there is room for you to be yourself to an extent. But paradoxically, on the flip side, sometimes limitations help. Sometimes you need that player at the table who says, "Can I just punch the lich in the face?" to remind you that this is actually what it's all about. Entertainment, fun, emotional connectivity, play, what if, playing pretend. And not everything needs to be revolutionary. Not every game system has to reinvent initiative or use tokens and interpretive dance as some sort of way to resolve combat. Sometimes people just want to roll a d20 and hit goblins. Or sometimes they just want the opportunity to play in a world that they already love and have some connection to. Outside of your sort of D&D and D&D clone staples, popular games often include things like Star Wars or Middle-earth or Fallout or Aliens. The end pair more modern. The transition between TTRPGs and computer games has become more blurred in recent years. But even so, that's not a fluke. People like those worlds and they want more of them. They're familiar with them, they're comfortable with them. It's already full of vibes and characters that they already know. Half of their effort in imagining things is already done because they've consumed the other media already. And that makes it easier for them to slide into roleplay. It lets them take part in a film or a TV series that they've watched and loved in a way that those don't let them, or it lets them extend the experience of the computer game beyond the limitations of the computer game. They've already got a mental map of the setting before you even roll up your character. As designers, I think sometimes we sneer at that it's derivative, that it's a cash grab. Yeah, we say, sniffing at our own farts. It's just playing in someone else's sandbox that they've put together. But that's kind of what sandboxes are for. You can bring your own toys, you can make weird castles, you can bury cool stuff, build a whole narrative on top of it. But there's no problem with people liking sandboxes. There's no problem with people liking, pre-constructed toys. You can still bring your own flavour to them. And there are a lot of things out there that people love that have not yet been made into games, and which you can make knockoffs of in order to allow people to play within those kinds of ideas of settings. And it doesn't matter if your influences come from stuff that isn't highbrow. I mean, games are rooted in genre fiction, right? And despite the occasional breakout example, the literati don't generally care too much about genre fiction. They don't consider it to be something worth even thinking about, no matter how much people in sci-fi and fantasy and so on chase that approval from literature, capital L. But you can draw on pulp fiction, old cartoons, trashy horror flicks, vintage erotica, anime with more jiggle physics than plot, whatever. If it sparks your imagination, if you enjoy it, if other people enjoy it, it's valid and you can bring that stuff to the table. In fact, this kind of stuff is often better at the table. If you're stuck for a plot, for a story, pick some obscure B-movie and turn it into a tabletop story. It's often better than the material that it's taken from. A lot of trashy throwaway stuff is bold, archetypical. It knows what it is. It doesn't pretend to be more than what it is. And it gives players something to do. And they're often perfectly happy with dog food. As much as they would be happy with a filet mignon steak lovingly prepared by you. It all ends up the same way at the end of the digestive tract. You can still smuggle your themes in, of course. You can still talk about oppression, identity, politics, psychology, just as, subtext, woven into the world, hidden in the cracks. Let the players find it and be impressed with themselves for finding it, instead of smacking them in the face with a 15-minute monologue from your morally grey villain who everyone's supposed to sympathise with, only to have him run through immediately because the players don't give a shit. Not everything has to be deep, not everything has to mean something. Sometimes the job is just to make something fun, something playable, something that doesn't require a literature degree to understand. In fact, that can be a positive disadvantage to understanding things anyway. So maybe we as creative people need to be a little bit less precious about all of this. It's okay to love dumb, simple stuff. It's okay to like fan service. It's alright to be inspired by rubbish. Just make sure it's your rubbish. Own it, remix it, love it. You don't have to write Ulysses every time you make a game. Sometimes you just need a good excuse for some weirdos to fight skeletons on a haunted pirate ship, and that's beautiful too. So, chill out, I guess. Zang.
About 3,000 of you subscribe, but only about 200 are getting notifications, so click the bell and click all.